Hello everyone, my name is John and I am a student of Udacity. I'm currently going through their self-driving car nanodegree program, and while they do a fantastic, wonderful job of explaining a lot of the concepts, they do expect that you have some Python background knowledge, and while I had some background knowledge, a lot of the stuff that they introduced I didn't follow, so some of the code that they went over I followed the concepts, but not the actual Python code implementation. And so I thought it might help other students out who maybe are going through the same thing if I shared some of what I learned. So let's dive in. So the very beginning, and I'll just pretty much go through everything. So if there's anything that you were missing, hopefully I'll cover it. But if I don't go over anything, or if you found anything still confusing, or if I didn't explain it well enough, leave me a question in the comments. Okay, so from the very beginning, so the first thing we're going to do is these import statements up at the top. And so if you haven't seen these before, what we're doing is we're just importing these different modules. And so basically a module, if you're not familiar with Python, a module is just basically a collection of functions, classes, functions, structs, all that different stuff that someone else has written, and they've done all the testing on it, and so then you can then import it, or in this case import a portion of it. So the matplotlib is a whole module, and then you can import a part of it, and there tends to be these kind of standard abbreviations, PLT, and so that just means that later on we'll be able to use it as plot instead of typing out this whole thing for the namespace. And these are pretty standard so that you can kind of follow along, or you can use someone else's code, or you can kind of know what they're talking about. So PLT is the standard abbreviation for this. Matplotlib.image, the standard abbreviation is npimg, and then import numpy as np. And then I will be doing this, I'll be calling matplotlib inline, and that just means that if I show any images, they're going to show directly below this code block right here instead of printing out to a new window. Okay, so that's import statements. So we're just importing someone else's modules that we can utilize for later. So then the next one is we're just going to read in the image, and it's pretty straightforward. So we're using mp image, so that's the matplot image. So we're using mp image read, and this takes an argument of the file path. And so if you take the image from the lesson and you just copy it into your local folder, then you can do that. If you have it saved somewhere else, then you can do dot, which tells it to go somewhere else, and then you could say file path to wherever the file's going, and documents, blah blah blah, whatever it is, just as long as you end up at the test image. If it's stored in the same directory as the Python file you're working on, then you can just do reference it directly like that. So that brings it in, and so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get the size of the image, both in the y and the x and y directions. And then I added this in just so we can see what's going on. So we're going to print x size and y size, so we make sure that worked out. So y size is 540 and x size is 960. So we have an image that is 540 by 960 pixels. And then the next thing we're going to do is make copies of the image so that we can work on the copies and we can edit them and change them and all that stuff without editing the original. So what we're going to do is we're going to make two different copies. So np, so that's numpy if you remember, so numpy is np. So we're going to do np.copy image, and then line image is np.copy image again. So we're going to take two different copies of this image, and we're going to assign it to these variables, color select, line image. And then just because I always like to see what we're doing, I went ahead and printed them out, and I called plot image show color select, and then plt.show, and then I'm going to do image show on line image and show that one as well. And that shows us that just like we expected. So we've got color select right here and line image right here, and they are exact copies of the original image that we brought in. And so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to define our color criteria. And so you guys can pick whatever thresholds you think work for you. These are some I'm going to go with just for right now. But so all we're doing here is we're defining red threshold is a variable, so Python's going to automatically make that an int. So red threshold is 200, green threshold is 200, blue threshold is 200, and then we're just immediately putting those into a list like this. And that would be literally exactly the same as if you did this, if you just did those directly instead of indirectly through variables. It just makes it a little easier to see what's going on if you name the variables and do it here. And then also it makes it easier to kind of adjust them up here and have them be adjusted down here rather than hard coding them into the list right here. And so let's go ahead and print RGB threshold and see what we stored. And like we thought, so we stored a list of 200, 200, 200. All right, in the next video, I'll be going over the next steps that they did in the lesson.